Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn today tweeting, quote, "For years, Anthony Fauci and Biden officials called this a conspiracy. Dr. Fauci had the good sense to retire back in December, but will people like him ever face the music?" Joining me now to discuss, Senator Marsha Blackburn herself. Welcome back to the show, Senator.
Good to be with you, Kennedy. And yes, this is something people in Tennessee are talking about. And this lab leak theory, they put it in there with, they said, well, you're wrong. It's conspiracy on Hunter's laptop, on big tech censorship, on lockdowns and the impact on our kids, and of course, the lab leak theory. And this is one of a long line of things where the leftist media has been wrong.
They have been wrong, and they have done their very best to make people pay with their careers if they did what Dr. Fauci told them to, which was to follow the science. And there were many virologists and epidemiologists who did, in fact, chart the virus itself, and they said, based on their research and data, that it was most likely a lab leak theory. They were shot down by colleagues, and Matt Ridley, who wrote a great book called Viral, he said that they had their funding withheld by government institutions if they dared come out and say what many of their colleagues silently nodded in agreement with, that was in fact true.
Yes, indeed. And see, this is what is so ironic about that, is they were following the science. And you have others, maybe Dr. Fauci himself, maybe and probably the World Health Organization as an entity, they were trying to cover all of this up.
Yes.
They were trying to protect China. They were trying to change the narrative. But let's say this. Let's say it could have come from the Wuhan lab or a lab in Beijing or Xinjiang or from Xi Jinping's basement. It does not matter. What we do know is China unleashed this on the world and then would not admit it, and therefore they would not help to clean this mess up. Over 1 million Americans lost their lives. Tens of millions of people had their lives, their livelihoods adversely impacted. We have young men that have myocarditis. We have individuals who are suffering heart problems, respiratory problems. We have people that are suffering from long COVID. And we have the Chinese Communist Party who is still saying it is not our fault. And what we need to do is get to the bottom of this. What did Dr. Fauci know? When did he know it? What was he trying to cover up? How was NIAID involved in this?
Yes.
How was EcoHealth involved in this? Follow that money trail. I look forward to finding out what happened, because what this did to our nation, to our people, to lives lost, there has to be accountability for this.
Yes, and in addition to the lives lost and the people who are suffering from the vaccine itself, are the children who suffered learning loss and mental health difficulties that they have yet to recover from. So there is a lot to answer for. Hopefully China will pay, but in this country, it seems as though there were entire bureaucracies and departments within the federal government who were helping stonewall. I don't understand how the FBI and the Department of Energy can look at the intel and say, yep, it's a lab leak, and the CIA and others are saying, no, we're still on the fence. Are they looking at different intelligence?
Well, regardless of what John Kirby has to say, I think one of the poorest framed remarks is this: there is no intelligence consensus. Let me tell you something. There is common sense consensus on this issue. China is responsible for the COVID-19 virus. It most likely did come out of that Wuhan lab, because that's where they were doing the research. And look at what China is doing. They won't tell us the truth about Chinese police stations in the U.S. or China farmland, or what they are doing with all of these Confucius institutes and the soft propaganda that they're doing. They don't want to talk about the intellectual property that they're stealing. They don't want to talk about the genocide they're carrying out on the Uyghurs, or the persecution of the Tibetans or the Mongolians or the Hong Kong freedom fighters. They don't want to talk about any of that. They don't want to talk about being part of the axis of evil with Russia, Iran, North Korea, or Xi Jinping going over there to meet with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because
yeah.
we're going to talk about that a little later in the show, and the effect that would have on the war in Ukraine and World War III.
Yes.
Senator Blackburn, you certainly have your hands full. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. Appreciate talking to you.
You got it. Take care.